good day, and welcome to the Believer's Lounge. How are you feeling today, John?
I'm feeling pretty good today.
Good.
For all of you in the future, for when this episode released, I'm feeling pretty good today, as I did in the last episode, because it's the same day.
It is. Oh, now you all know our secret. Oh, dear. Well, I'm glad we're doing good today. Ready to get on with this episode. Welcome to episode 3 of our worship series, where today we're going to do a little deep dive into worship music, specifically looking at the different kinds of music and the different kinds of singing. We're going to look at maybe a little bit about the psalters, the hymns, leading up to kind of, I like to coin the term, the contemporary Reformation. We're going to talk about a little bit about the praise bands of the 90s, Maranatha, Hillsong, when Hillsong was emerging, and then into the music, the worship music of the early 2000s, and then a little bit into modern music, where we talk about kind of the whole genre fusion that's been happening with music as a whole. And then we'll talk a little bit about specific instruments and how they relate to worship and how they're used, and we'll go from there. But I think that's a good basis to start off on.
I think that's a good starting point.
Alrighty. Well, without further ado, let's get into it.
Pause for music.
I like to pause for the music. Please edit that out.
Oh, that'll be edited out. That's gone.
Cool.
Blooper reel.
Music. Music is expressive by nature, and there are so many parts of it. So how about we start off with talking about kind of little snapshot of the history of music when it pertains to worship.
Yeah, that goes all the way back into the Old Testament, going through into the New Testament.
That's right.
Where they talk about singing hymns, and back then they would sing the Psalms as well.
That's right. Yes. There's definitely references in the Bible where we hear of the Israelites praising God with cymbals, with their instruments, essentially. And then, of course, there's definitely the singing aspect of it as well, too.
And I think we could probably dive into that in a different episode, because there's a lot to unpack there.
That's right. I was just thinking that, to be honest.
Yeah. So let's jump ahead a couple of centuries.
For sure.
So yeah, jumping ahead a couple of centuries to cathedral singing.
Okay.
When it would be the monks and the nuns of the day, and what it was called the Gregorian chant.
Oh, yes.
So it's similar to the way that the scriptures and prayers were chanted in the Jewish synagogues, but more modern, eventually allowing for multiple octaves and introducing harmonies. And that led into the Middle Ages, where they would sing of the Genevan Psalms, and it was pretty unsuccessful until the organ was introduced. And many churches needed the organ to support the voice.
That's right, an instrument being starting to be an accompaniment for the voices,
exactly.
Especially with intricate harmonies and such. Yes.
And then, so the next revolution, you could say, is the introduction of the piano because any growing church, any smaller church just starting out can't afford an organ because organ's very expensive in the day, but a piano was a little bit more affordable.
Yes, that's right.
So pretty much from what I'm gathering, the worship music kind of evolves with the popular music genres back in the early 18th century leading up into the 19th century. You were very heavy on the hymns because of composers coming out like Bach, Handel, and Pachelbel. That was the music of the time, the popular music of the time. And the worship music emulates that. And then you can, leading up into the 20th century, you had musical genres like gospel come out, and you had, that was stemming out of the blues and jazz, and you had bluegrass coming up. That's where you get your Southern gospel coming out of. And then leading into maybe late 70s, going through the 80s into the 90s, you really had your music revolution. They're not just strictly into worship music, but that's when pop was really coming out. That's when you had classic rock and rock coming out. So the worship music evolves along with that.
Well, it also, it's, in a sense, it's influenced by it. And although, worship music we're separate from the world, right? And so we want to maintain that distinction, right? Our music is going to glorify God, not others. But it's, like you said, it is definitely influenced about what's going on at the time. So definitely, we've seen a lot of change. At the beginning, like in the 1980s and the 1990s, continuing on from where you left off there, we started to see the formations of the praise band. Like I've mentioned, Maranatha, Hillsong, definitely. And then in the not necessarily the popular music realm, but we started to see more kind of groups come up, like the Newsboys. A lot of people, I'm going to get off on one of my tangents here again, but a lot of people don't notice that a lot of these groups that we still have music from today were started even before the 2000s in some kind of capacity, right? And so then moving forward from the formation of the praise bands, then we get into Matt Redman, Chris Tomlin, Matt Maher. Oh my goodness, and a lot of these singer songwriters, right? And now really, and then just to kind of cap it off, in the last, it's at least 5 years, maybe you can be a little bit more generous, closer to 10. There's been a lot of genre fusion in Christian music. Now, like we talked about last episode, definitely there's different styles and expressions of worship, but we do need to make sure that, again, it is honoring God, because it is an avenue that we ultimately worship God, and so we want to make sure that is wholly pleasing and acceptable to God. Right? That's again something to take very seriously.
Right, because not every song that gets played on Christian radio is necessarily appropriate to be sung on Sunday.
Oh, exactly. And another thing,
not saying that the songs, don't glorify God.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Exactly. But yeah, certain songs are not necessarily meant for the Sunday atmosphere, and we also have to be careful even on Christian radio. And you know what? I think it's a good practice that music that we listen to, we go straight to the Bible.
Mm-hmm.
We make sure that this is honoring and biblically accurate, biblically accurate lyrics, and that the music again is going to glorify God. And I think, well, to be honest, I think we should do that for everything. That's important. Take our thoughts, you know what I mean? Our words, our actions, but then again, our worship and music being the primary outlet that most people use. And check it with God's word. We should be doing that, right? Because that is very important. Another thing is looking at different musical genres. That's something that I guess some people have different opinions on. And to just give you kind of an example of what I mean by that is going back to the late 90s, early 2000s, we saw a lot of emergences of, I wouldn't say metal, but I would say heavy rock bands, heavy rock Christian bands coming out.
Yeah, that really started with group named Petra.
Big influence.
They just recently celebrated their 50th year as a group, which is absolutely insane.
It is insane, yeah.
Stemmed out other groups such as Striper, other groups that formed out of those two almost, I would say, pioneering groups in Christian rock. Skillet came out of that group.
Yeah, we had 1,000-Foot Crutch from there.
Crutch came out of that group. Red.
Mm-hmm. So we had some different groups come out, and I remember back at the time, I remember having the conversation with parents, with others in the church, and then with fellow youth. Because yes, I was a youth during then. So, we're not playing Guess the Age here, but I've had different conversations with different groups of people about the whole topic. Can Christian be rock, heavy metal? Can that still be Christian music?
Mm-hmm.
Can that still be glorifying to God? Right? Can it still be worship music, or is it just music? You know what I mean? Because again, a lot of those groups, and I'm not speaking for them, and I'm not speaking for all of them, but I would say some of those groups were kind of reaching into the mainstream music, but they weren't mentioning like God, Jesus, Holy Spirit, the Sunday morning vocabulary, we'll say, in their songs.
Mm-hmm.
Due to the fact that they wanted to reach out to the mainstream to get people to listen, and they would put their either their uplifting messages or their topics they wanted to be speaking to through these lyrics. And so, and they did that as a way to as their ministry, I guess, right? And so, but there was definitely people on the other side of the coin that were like, no, this is not acceptable, right? And so, and I'm not here to say whether it is or not. That's not the point of our conversation. But it's just, again, it's just an example to understand that that's one of many different things that happened throughout history, right? Where people have been split as to the change of musical worship, right? In specifics to the genres, right? And the instruments used, right? Because there was a time, we'll just briefly talk about this, but there was a time when the organ was viewed as the only acceptable instrument. But there was a time, I think before then,
where
organ was, not of God. So
organ was viewed as the devil's instrument.
that's right, yeah. And so there's definitely been a lot of changes. And so personally, my view is you can use any instrument to glorify God, because again, it comes from your heart, right? It's the motive behind it. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. And John Cooper, lead singer of Skillet, has an interesting story alluding to that. When he was 10 years old and wanted to go see Stryper in concert, his mother would not let him because she said it's devil's music.
Mm-hmm.
He badgered her so much that she agreed. She said, "I will take you to the concert." But the minute they start praying to Satan, we're out of there. Well, they went to that concert, and about halfway through the concert, she looked over to him. She said, "Those boys up there really love Jesus."
Mm.
You can't always take a book by its cover. You hear a rock band that is Christian, and you have to examine their lyrics again.
Oh, for sure.
Filter through the Bible.
For sure, definitely.
Filter through like what their views are, what each member's personal views of the Bible, Christianity, and God. So you got to look at every aspect, not just lyrically, and not just, oh, they're playing rock, so it's automatically bad music.
That's right. But yeah, and there'll definitely be kinds of music, genres of music people like and they don't like, right? And we don't want to base whether we think something is acceptable or not just solely on the genre, right?
Exactly.
That is key. And so, yeah, and I guess one other thing about that is with the whole genre fusion that's been happening, like Christian music in the 2000s has literally been following different genres. And I think in today's, in 2024, where Christian music's kind of on the country music section of it. It's almost like it's following different things, you know what I mean? So again, different styles are fine, but we want to make sure that the lyrics are biblically sound and that not just the song is biblically sound, but again, their music video, however they portray themselves out, whether it's at concerts or just their music being played, that's done in a manner that's acceptable. And now joining us on the podcast is Ryan. Hi, Ryan. How are you doing today?
I'm doing very good.
Thank you for joining us on the podcast today. Ryan is a lifelong fan of gospel music, and you also have an extensive knowledge on the Gaithers.
Yes, I do.
Very nice, very nice. Ryan's going to be sharing with us today. We're going to have my co-host here, John. He's going to be facilitating and joining Ryan in a conversation, talking about gospel music and talking a little bit about the Gaithers. So without further ado, I'll pass it over to John.
Well, I know gospel music has a wide range in and of itself. You've got the gospel music that came out of the black churches, which that's a genre I'm not all that familiar about with myself. Ryan, I know you are more into the quartets that stemmed out of the old radio shows. What were some of the quartets that came out of that?
Well, some of the quartets that came out in there were like the Rangers Quartet, the Homeland Harmonies, and the Blackwood Brothers, and the Cathedrals.
Okay, yeah, I know the Blackwood Brothers. They came out. They were from Alabama, were they not?
I believe so. They're one of the oldest names in gospel music.
And that was that James who started that?
I believe it was.
Do you know any of the other members of that group?
Yeah. There was Bill Lyle, R.W. Blackwood, James Blackwood, and of course James, and I believe London Paris, and many others.
Right. So most of these quartets or even singing groups, they were mostly families, were they not?
Right.
And they would go around traveling on buses all over the southern states and all over America.
Yeah, and I believe into Canada too. But yeah, they would drive around in the. First, it started out with like cars, and then came the tour bus. They would have to lug all their equipment around, because trying to stuff all that stuff into a car, like they needed like a lot more space.
Right. So what were some of the families that were going around?
Oh, like the Happy Goodman family, the Rambos.
And I know the Spear family was pretty influential singing group. They ended up starting a school as well for music.
Yeah, it was started by Ben Spear, called the Stamps Baptist School of Music. And they have two locations in Dallas, Texas, and Nashville, Tennessee.
Right, and the Stamps was also a quartet as well, was it not?
Right.
Who was in the Stamps?
I believe the owner of the Stamps was V.O. Stamps. That's Virgin Oliver. Then after a while, J.D. Sumner, he took control over the Stamps, and it was called J.D. Sumner and the Stamps. And other members were like Donnie Sumner, Jim Hill, Eddie Nick, and many others.
And I know one of the other big names in quartet music was Jake Hess.
Oh, yeah.
Known as Mr. Gospel Music.
Yeah.
Out of Alabama as well, I hear.
Yeah, he originated from Alabama, and in the earlier parts of the Statesman Quartet. Like, he was not an original member, but he was there for a good many years.
Right. So, and then that could lead us into talking about probably the most well-known name in Southern gospel music, which is Bill Gaither.
Oh, Bill.
And I believe he was influenced a lot by all these quartets, but mostly by Jake Hess.
Oh, was he ever? Like, he would like have almost all of each group's records. You would listen into a small room in his parents' house. But then in 1990, he gathered all those great pioneers into a studio in Nashville. They had just like a recording session, and then after, Bill thought, well, that's it. But then he looked back at the tape and he's thinking, these are my friends. These are my heroes. But then the network like caught on, and then eventually people started to enjoy him. And probably wondered, is there going to be more? And of course there was, and that sparked the Homecoming videos.
So when did the Gaither? It wasn't originally the Gaither vocal band. It was the Gaither trio.
Right.
When did they start?
They began in 1956. The original members were Bill and his brother Danny and their sister Marianne.
Okay, yeah, 1956. You were a little boy then.
I wasn't even developing eyelids yet.
It starts off with the trio, and then how did it evolve after that? They had backup singers?
They did.
Who were some of those early backup singers?
Well, two of the male singers were Steve Green and Lee Young, And some of the female singers were Steve's wife. I believe her name is Marianne, and also Sandy Patty, and another lady.
Right. But those are some big names in not only gospel, but just Christian music in general. I remember growing up listening to Steve Green.
Yeah, me too.
So when did the vocal band, when did they start?
They began in 1980 with Bill, Steve Green, Lee Young, and Gary McSpadden, who was a part of the trio. So they just like got together and like started like harmonizing, and then they would say like ice cream, ice cream, ice cream. And eventually that sounded good, so they kept on.
So really into that 4-part male harmony that he grew up listening to on the radio.
Yep.
And now Bill, he's in the hymnal as well.
Oh yeah,
He's got many songs. Do you know how many songs Bill has written? Or Bill and his wife Gloria? They're usually together on those songs.
yeah. They have like over 700 songs. Probably maybe over 800, but yeah, well, a lot of songs. And most of their songs are in the hymnals. Like famous songs like Because He Lives, The King is Coming, There's Something About That Name, Something Beautiful. There's just something about that name.
Right. And he's won some awards for some of these songs, has he not?
Oh, many awards.
And they don't keep their songs often. They give them to other groups.
Yeah, other groups have recorded their songs, like the Cathedrals, maybe the Stamps, the Ernie Hawson's Signature Sound, possibly Legacy 5, like many other groups.
Right. And from what I know, from these Homecoming movies or videos and these concerts that they've done, they bring all these artists together and then they'll leave and do their own thing, and people know them because they've seen them on the tapes. I know that's happened with a young group that started out, I think 1991, 92, the Martins.
Yes.
They started out on one of these Gaither concerts, and that's how they got recognition.
Yeah. Yeah, their mother gave a cassette to Mark Lowry, and she said, "I want you to hear my kids sing." So he and Michael English, they listened to him, and they thought, "These kids are good. Bill has got to hear them." So that's what they did. And during a taping, they had the Martins came on, and they sang the song "He Leadeth Me," and after that, just got them a big applause.
Right, and so that's how these artists kind of break out into their careers, is they get referred, they almost get referred to Bill. Bill Gaither is almost the, who am I thinking of right now? Bill Gaither is almost the Clive Davis of of music, discovering all this talent. I remember hearing that Mark Lowry again introduced an artist to Bill, and that was David Phelps. David Phelps could not break into the music. He was living in Nashville, and he couldn't make it. He was about ready to pack up and go back to Texas. And he had a meeting with Mark. Mark showed him Bill, and now David is considered one of the greatest male voices of all time.
Oh, yeah. David has such a fantastic voice. Well, David, he went to Baylor University and he majored in vocal performance. And he joined the vocal band in 1997 and has been there since 2005. And then again, he rejoined them in 2009 and stayed with them until 2017.
I believe he gets all the way up to that C5 sharp, the D5. I've heard him go all the way up to an F. Okay, and so kind of wrapping this interview up, what are the Gaithers doing now? What is Bill up to now?
Oh, they are still doing concerts all over the country. And they're still making records and I believe still making some homecoming videos.
All right, Michael, do you have anything you want to add?
Yeah, I think that was a really great conversation between the two of you. Thank you, John, for facilitating that, and thank you, Ryan, for sharing your knowledge and your passion for gospel music. It's always great to hear someone who's enjoyed that and who has not only enjoyed that, but enjoys, experiencing it. You don't see a lot of the younger generation into gospel music these days. At least, perhaps it's a different story down in the States, but here in Canada, I would say you don't see a whole lot of that. So just want to say again, thank you for coming on the podcast, Ryan. It was a pleasure to have you. And thanks again.
Thank you for having me.
So to end it off, I just want to read a Bible verse here. We're looking at Ephesians chapter 6, verses 10 to 13. And this is where Paul's talking about the whole armor of God. Finally, my brethren, be strong in the Lord and in the power of his might. Put on the whole armor of God, that you may be able to stand against the wiles of the devil. For we don't wrestle against flesh and blood, but against principalities, against powers, against the rulers of the darkness of this age, against spiritual hosts of wickedness in the heavenly places. Therefore, take up the whole armor of God, that you may be able to withstand in the evil day, and having done all that, to stand. And just to highlight the reason why we chose that verse, if it may not seem like it really speaks on anything about worship music, it's we picked that because it's just another reminder that no matter what your method of worship is, no matter whether it was back in the day or not, that we need to be into God's word, and we need to be making sure that our worship is, pleasing to God. So thank you for tuning in. Again, thank you, John, for all your comments as well. I don't know why I say that. You're the host. You're a host as well. I just feel like I need to say something. You know what I mean? But anyway, this is it for now. And we got an exciting episode coming up next, don't we? So
we do. We'll continue this conversation.
For sure. Take care, everyone.